All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first official episode of the Primal podcast. It is MLP Dota and John Expired. John, you look fantastic, sir, but I've got to ask you, how the hell do you feel?
Oh, I'm feeling great, Mike. A lot of stuff has happened just in the past few hours, actually, and there's really a lot of stuff to cover. A lot of stuff has been happening all across the globe, especially it doesn't just relate to Dota 2, but we will be talking about how a lot of it is gonna affect the scene for a while.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, we've been talking about doing this podcast for like maybe a year now, maybe
Yeah.
6 months to a year. It's been a long time, right? And of all things, I never thought to myself our first episode would be during a time like this. In case you aren't aware, in case you have been living under a rock, COVID 19, John, appears to be sweeping the world. It's a rather problematic pandemic that appears to be going on. And unfortunately, against all odds, it apparently is affecting the Dota scene. We already have heard a couple majors and minors have been cancelled. And I suppose that's what I want to talk about with you. It's a rather sad way to start off the podcast, but we're going to do it. Valve did announce, maybe what was it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, they announced that the fourth major and minor, and I believe it was Epicenter and Dota Pit, were cancelled due to this COVID 19 crisis. Sad days, especially for us, because we usually cast Epicenter, John.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's a job
Oh
gone
yeah.
for us. And we were
Oh
meant
yeah.
to cast Dota Pit as well, but I don't think they'll be doing close qualifiers now, though I haven't had confirmation. What the hell's going on? What's happening?
Look, I mean, with all of the measures in place to stop the virus from moving around, that human malware from going around, it's gonna be a rough time for any sort of live event to really kick off. So all of these LAN events are probably gone for the next few months. The direct hits were, of course, the next set of major minors, but you have to consider as well. You've got one esports with something to close the season out, right? Like they're supposed to be probably the fifth major, if their announcement was right. They announced very early on they were hosting the last major. I'm not sure how that's going to happen anymore as well, because one esports is based in Singapore. They were planning to do that there,
Hmm.
and that would be further out, right? Like that would be, let's say, around June-ish or June or May, and that's still a long time away. But just going by how everything else is going, it doesn't feel like we're going to be seeing any sort of big live event anytime soon. Not just for Dota 2, but for a lot of stuff elsewhere. I think that's it's going to be interesting because Dota 2 doesn't necessarily have to be played on a LAN. Like you could play a lot of more localized tournaments online, like what we're seeing with WeSave, the charity play, right? Like they're doing it all
Hmm.
online. I'm going to be interested to see how that coalesces to the international teams facing off, because that international fights does sound like a bit of a nightmare when you're playing online. But when you're playing online with people in roughly the same general area, sure you're gonna have some latency, but we've done that a lot with qualifiers. We've watched qualifiers. We've seen people play from, say, we've seen people from like India play in Southeast Asian. It's not the best connection, but it's not enough to really be supremely detrimental to the game. And I think that's a possibility we can look at the very least. The scene is probably going to be looking at for the next few months. I think you're going to see a lot more online tournaments taking place. Whether or not there are more announcements yet is to be seen. But I think in that downtime, we can expect a lot more regional tournaments online to pop up.
Well, and there's my question, right? Like the fourth one's got cancelled, and I'm kind of sitting here thinking, what happens to the fifth ones? It doesn't look very likely that the fifth major and minor is going to happen, which is rather depressing to think about. And I wonder, considering if they don't happen, like we're going to get into TI9, and it's like, well, how the hell do you even dictate who goes to TI9 if you don't have these majors and minors?
Yeah, it's rough. I reckon that entire end of season is just up in the air. You've got way too many tournaments that were pushed off. You got ESLLA that just straight up got canceled, and that was really just about to happen. So I think that's going to take priority for rescheduling. There's no way you're going to push that way further back because the qualifiers are done. Teams were determined by a patch long ago now. That patch is pretty much out of date. What
Hmm.
these players played on. So more and more, the results for those qualifiers are going to be put into question as you separate that time from the qualifier to the actual tournament. So I think ESL LA is going to have to take prioritization for any sort of LAN event that comes back in. The question is when. It doesn't feel like we're going to be in a spot come June where it's going to be normal to go around in big groups again. I think this is our new normal for a while. And that's not panic spreading. I think that's just the general way these preventive measures work. You're really to really stem it, it's gonna be a while. Like you take a look at what the province in China did. They were under lockdown for a very long time, and it's at the point where it's spreading, pretty much untraceable for the most part across most of the globe. So it's gonna be a while until we see that. I think the biggest thing, right? You mentioned TI10. I don't know if that tournament can go on without any majors behind
No,
it.
no, don't
I
say
don't
that, John.
know. I honestly don't know. Like, how are you going to determine who goes in? How are you going to justify those tournament sponsors? We thought they would be building up towards that event. Two major sponsors, two minor sponsors before TI10. What are they going to do now? That your big tournament's coming in, your big tournament's going to take that slot. These guys signed a contract with Valve to get funding, so it's a very very odd area to be in. Like you can guarantee them a tournament after, but with the restructuring to the league system as well for DPC, I'm not sure what they can expect. It's a weird time. We're in a transit in the DPC system. You have all of this going on, pushing everything back. It's a strange spot to be in for a lot of events, but for particularly for Dota 2, for tournament organizers, I'm not sure what to make of it.
It's a sad. I mean, I especially felt sad for the LA Major, right? Like that was finally a tournament that was going to happen again in North America. It was
Mm.
in LA of all places, right? Like you're going to I guess you could say Hollywood in a sense, right? You're going to the big place, the place where stars are born, and suddenly it gets cancelled. And by the way, John, that was our first event ever working with ESL,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So apparently we've ruined ESL completely now. We've just completely killed them off. That was our first time doing qualifiers with ESL, which was a big deal to me. I thought it was a bit of fun. I thought it was fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Gets cancelled off. It's a bit sad for the North Americans. I do believe ESL did refund tickets, if I'm correct, John.
Yeah. Yeah.
They did offer, so good on them, right? They offered the refunds. They took it on the chin. I am being asked, John, have I lost weight? A little bit, just a little bit of weight, right?
It does kind of show. I've got to say it, Mike.
Thank you,
It does show.
thank you very much. Um, but yeah, it's nice to see at least that ESL refunded them. Very sad to see that it was cancelled off. Very upsetting indeed. Still, the fifth major and minor is still upon us. As far as I'm concerned, John, it has not been cancelled off yet, and I don't want to admit that it's probably not going to happen, right? Because I'm going to get a bit upset. I'm going to
That's
get a
fair,
little bit
right?
upset.
Like, because the fifth one's supposed to be in Singapore. That's
Right.
that's the best chance a lot of people will have in our region to see a big event. We haven't had a major since, well, I guess technically the Kuala Lumpur major, but it's another chance for people again to experience that tournament vibe, to see their favorite players, their favorite casters live. Just from an audience perspective, it was going to be big. Singapore, of course, is one of the nicer places in Southeast Asia. A bit more expensive, but if you can go there, it would have been a good time. So to have that potentially taken away is rather unfortunate. Again, none of this is good news. It's like no one's gonna be happy about any of this. It's gonna be a rough time. Like players are gonna be upset. I think the biggest hit ones are actually casters and anyone in production. It's gonna be a rough time for them. Beyond us, like think about how a lot of people reschedule to go to these live events to contribute to them. It's hard. It's gonna be a hard time for all of us, and I think we're just gonna have to ride that out. Hopefully, opportunity will come. Like there is so much space in the online systems to really bring out content for Dota 2, and I think it's only a matter of time until we see some sort of online tournament kickoff beyond WeSave.
Should we talk about the fact that that was meant to be our first LAN as well? Not one esports, don't get us wrong, but we were meant to work a LAN together for once.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't the biggest deal in the world, right? But it was fun for. It was very exciting for us. We were both meant to go to WESG. Where was it initially? I can't remember the initial city. I know
I
it.
think it was originally Kuala Lumpur.
Right. So we were meant to go to Kuala Lumpur. Didn't work out. I believe they switched it over to Macau, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It was meant to go to Macau, so they said, "Hey, instead of going to Malaysia, we're going to Macau." And it's like, "Yeah, okay, that's fine. I don't mind, gambling a little bit. That's cool." Right? And then that got cancelled off because of this COVID-19 garbage that just came out. It's a bit it was a bit upsetting, John. We were meant to finally meet in person. We're going to get to, cast together live.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
didn't work out, and we're very unlucky. I've got to say, you and me with lands, John. I mean, my first land gets DDoSed, second land gets cancelled from Corona. What's next? I mean, the third land announcement, I'm gonna literally have to go to church and hope to God that the world doesn't explode or something. Like
Oh god.
it's getting bad now, John. I don't mean to sound like a victim here, but my God, I want to do some lands. Can we stop having
The-
disasters happen?
yeah, it's gonna be rough. It's just terrible timing. Like, so we got contacted kind of early on. I mean, it was a bit close to the date, but we were supposed to be in KL for that entire event by first week Jan, actually January 2, which
Mm,
is a bit insane when you think about that timing, right? Like you're holding a tournament right after New Year, but
yeah.
it was gonna be fun. So January 2 is approaching, and we don't hear any concrete update. I start asking. I actually have to ask. Um, who was it? Someone from the old squad in India, Signify from Signify. I had to ask No Chance about it because
Right.
they were supposed to go. They were excited. It's their first land outside of India, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to Macau instead." I'm like, "Okay, sure, fine. It's moved." And then you hear about, and then right when Macau is about to happen, that's when it gets really bad in East Asia.
Yeah.
And that's when all of it just gets closed out. So yeah, I mean it's rough, right? Like we've looked forward to working physically together for a while, and it's gonna be interesting. I figure that the regional league should be fun. I think
Hmm.
that's a good chance. The issue is, when does that kick off now? Because that's supposed to be for next season. We're stuck in limbo with the current season.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's a new system. It's kind of online, kind of not. Like the tier one system's online, right? So like, or no,
Yeah,
sorry, the tier one is it's studio based. So I
yeah,
think it's
yeah,
still online, but the production has to be in a studio,
yeah.
which still causes complications. Because if COVID's
Oh
still
yeah,
going on at that time, how do you run the studios? Like it's
yeah, yeah.
not going to make too
It's
much sense.
non-essential. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's non-essential, so it wouldn't work out. Still, like, I know it's rough, right? Like the entire thing is just rough. Like, my biggest thing is when you look at the timings of what we have for Dota 2 and you compare it to what's big going on right now. You look at Japan. The Tokyo Olympics are supposed to happen in summertime, and that's right around
Right.
the ballpark of TI.
Mm.
And the government has been very, very careful tiptoeing about around the topic that whether or not it will go on. Canada just pulled out all their athletes. They just said we're not going. Even if it goes through, we're not going. Tokyo
Pretty
Olympics.
sure
And
Australia did the same.
yeah, so you've got all these countries pulling out now, and that's in like June, July. It paints a very poor prospect for anything else that's happening in that time frame. So it remains to be seen. It's just rough. It's just going to be hard for all of us.
Wait, is that confirmed? Tostrus is saying in
Wait,
chat,
really?
John.
I did not see that announcement. I've been following this one for a
Yeah,
while.
so
Jeez.
he's saying the Olympics are postponed till 2021, which I would probably
Oh
say is
wow.
probably very realistic.
They just
Is that the
call that
case?
that was just reported 5 hours ago. Jeez.
Jeez, we better get
Yeah.
Tostrus on the damn podcast. He's getting news faster than we are.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I was asleep because of Alex, but they've been tiptoeing around that for a while. They postponed it by a year. I think that's what we have to expect. Like, I don't want to be a negative Nancy, but
hmm.
if the Olympics gets pushed back, there's a high probability everything else is going to be pushed back as well. Although, granted, the reasoning for the Olympics when countries pulled out is because they're physical sports, people are in actual physical contact, and Nick.
was was the guy that announced it really named Dick
Yeah,
Pound?
apparently, yeah. Oh, reality stranger than fiction sometimes.
Oh my. You ever think to yourself like why parents call their kids like you surely you know, right? If your last name's Pound, surely you know that Dick is arguably one of the worst names to call your child, right? With the last name. There was some I had a kid in school, John. His last name
Yeah,
was Adam. So his
yeah,
parents decide I'm gonna call him Adam as well, right? His first name. So this poor kid had to go through all of primary and high school being called Adam Adam, and nobody would ever let it go, right? His name was Adam Adam, and it's like, hey, what's your last name? And he'd say Adam. So what's your first name? And Adam. And everyone thought he was a bit slow, right? We're like, oh, he's one of the, he's a bit there's something going on there. He might be one of the special cases here, but no. Turns out his name was Adam Adam, right? So it was like Dick Pound of all things. Wow, that's a new one. That's
yeah. I have to say, I'm kind of used to it. Filipinos have a very strange way of naming their kids. You have a lot of princes, you have a lot of princesses, you have a lot of people named after famous people. I'm not sure what goes on through our heads.
right.
I'm not sure if anything goes through our heads actually when we name our kids, but hey, it's the way it is.
First of all, by the way, for anyone new listening to the podcast, MLP does not stand for My Little Pony, right? Thank you for that. You know, thank you for that, Livy. Thanks for pointing that out. It is Michael the Phoenix. That's what the MLP stands for. Why did I do this to myself? I don't know, John. I can't believe when I first thought about my name, right? I thought what'd be a great name to put for a casting name, right? And I thought, MLP Dota stands for those initials, right? It'd be genius. And for some reason, in my huge head, this head right here,
Yeah.
it didn't click that people may mistake that for My Little Pony. And unfortunately, because I'm not very in tune with, internet memes and things like that, I didn't realize, John, that apparently that there is some kind of My Little Pony porn online, right? So some people have
God
some fetish
help us.
for it. Well, I don't know.
God
That
help us.
apparently it's existent, right? I haven't
God.
personally watched it, but apparently it exists. So now everyone thinks I'm a brony, apparently. Which
Are
which
you?
do I look like one, John? Is this what a brony
Yes.
looks like?
Yes. Yes, honestly, yeah, I think oh yeah.
Wow.
It's
Really?
honestly not. They attract all kinds, Mike. All kinds.
Wow.
You should know. I mean, well, yeah, it's just the way it is. It's a weird sub community. And I mean, I'm like live and let live, but that's not something I would personally
Yeah, I
touch.
mean,
No.
whatever you into, right? Like if you're into My Little Pony cartoon, whatever you're into it. It's just it's a bit hard for me, John. Trying to become a
Oh yeah.
caster. Everybody
Oh
that
yeah.
follows me says, "Does it stand for My Little Pony?" Is that what it stands? No, it doesn't stand for My Little Pony, right? You read the damn name above MLP Dota, and you'll see what it stands for. Michael Phoenix. In fact, maybe we should add it to the podcast thing at the bottom of my screen, just so
Yeah, maybe
everyone's
we can
aware.
do that next time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe we should.
definitely fix that up.
Nevertheless, back on track, John. Enough of that. I did want to give a shout out to We Save, or We Play rather. They've called their tournament We Save, and you mentioned it before. But these guys, and I don't know how they do it, and this is something I wanted to ask you because you've worked in production, right? But somehow, within a few days of the community asking, they pull a tournament out of their ass. Like they just like out of nowhere, out of thin air, it's here. They have a We Save tournament. Somehow have a 120 grand prize pool, right? And you haven't watched much of it, to be fair, but their
No.
production is fantastic. I don't know how they do it. Every single time We Play makes a tournament, it looks way better than any other tournament we've ever seen, apart from maybe TI. Or maybe even DAC, right? DAC is usually pretty darn good.
Mm.
But I don't know how they do it on such short notice, and more importantly, how are they making profit?
The profit part's a bit weird. We've worked with a lot of these tournaments. I think a big part of it is probably sponsorship deals, specifically for Resave, and I think a lot of it's also down to maybe ad viewing. So those are the two big ones. More than likely, it's a majority sponsorships for this one. I don't think you're going to be looking too much at ads for a charity tournament. You're not going to be blasting ads too much. So it's probably down to just having really strong contacts with sponsorships. A lot of companies are stepping it up in response to this one because it's really rough for a lot of people, for our healthcare workers, all across the globe. You saw Min Liang Tan announce that Razer would repurpose its factories to make masks. Now, I personally don't really enjoy Razer products, but it's a very good move from a company like that to get that happening. They're just repurposing their factories to make much more essential goods than gamer products right now. So it's a good move. I think we play generally just has a lot of sway. They've probably had enough in their bank as well to just get that prize pool out. They might have
Right.
had that in reserve for another minor, perhaps for another event down the line, just repurposing it for the short term to help out and really build up. I think the biggest issue, the biggest quandary in actually scheduling something like that is getting teams on board in such short notice. But you had the added boom of really not having anything else to do, so a lot of teams would just say
It's
yes.
true.
I think when it comes down to production, it's not as hard as you think. I mean, I'm not downplaying what production did, but there are lots of ways to get those assets out for a tournament like this on last minute. Mainly by repurposing old assets. I mean, they have a style, right? Like they've got this certain aesthetic or company guideline to style that they just adhere to. Repurpose it for we save, and you're pretty much set. But props to them, like they turned around quite fast. The tournament has been I haven't heard anything else but good stuff. Beyond internet issues for some of our participants from the Philippines,
Hmm.
two players from the Philippines complaining about that internet now. But
Your boys, John.
overall, oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I could go on about the internet there. You know what? I'll go on a tangent for a bit. That the internet company in the Philippines raised the minimum speeds for people from 5 Mbps to 25. They said we have the capacity to do so. We've always had a capacity.
Wow.
I'm like, if you always had a capacity, why are you charging people for 5? If you could do a minimum of 25 for each person, why are you charging? Why are you still offering 5? And so they get that done. They give everyone 25 Mbps, and then people can't connect. So what is it? Did they have capacity? Did they not have capacity? I mean, these guys are just talking out of their butthole sometimes. But that was a bit out topic there. Still at the end, I just want to say we save is doing a fantastic job, and I
Hmm.
think it's just down to repurposing what might have been a future tournament to just helping people out right now.
Yeah, I gotta give props to them, John. Like of all things, they've come to save the day. Again, you haven't really watched too much of it, but I've got to tell you, they're doing a fantastic job. There is a pretty big delay between games, but I think that would be due to the online nature of the
Mm.
game. It'd be a bit hard to coordinate production and the games at this, and you never know, right? Teams may be running late. I mean, we've seen it many
Mm.
times, right? We're in a
Oh yeah.
lobby. They were scheduled 30 minutes ago to start the game. Nobody's in the lobby. God knows what they're doing, and all props to them. Their production's fantastic. They ended up hiring a lot of talent that were stuck in Europe and the Ukraine, and places like that. I believe Kyle right now is actually stuck in the Ukraine as of now due to the coronavirus. So they're hiring talent that are readily available and already kind of around the area. Unfortunately for them being stuck there, I can't confirm that 100%, though. I do believe that is the case. So take
Mm.
that with a grain of salt. But I do like the fact that they've actually said, "Hey, you guys are here. We're going to give you something to do at least. You guys are going to be sitting here bored otherwise." And they're putting on a show. They're putting on a real show. I got to tell you. So I'm quite impressed with WeSave. In fact, I'm kind of upset that we weren't involved, John. I wanted
Oh yeah.
to. I would have loved to remote cast for them. Unfortunately, of course, they were better talent than us out there, so they got the not better looking talent, John. I say we're probably the best looking talent available right now, but there was talent out there, and even B Cops mentioned. I am pretty sure they're volunteering. I
Yeah.
don't. So you got to give props to the casters as well. because they're not even getting paid for this. They're just
Mm.
taking their time out of their day. They're working. They're casting at their fullest potential. And I give props to them, John. It's not easy to work for free, right?
Oh yeah.
It's not fun to do a job for free. Obviously, we like casting as casters, so it's a bit of a passion. But all props to them. You're working for free. It's for a great cause. Production's fantastic. Talent's fantastic. Uh, and I even an email that I did send them, John, I did commend them on that, right? I sent them an email
Mm.
and I said, "Hey, you guys are doing a great job. Keep that shit up,
Yeah.
right?" I
Yeah.
think they're a pillar of the community now. In all
Oh
honesty,
yeah.
John, they
Oh
really
yeah.
are. Um,
Definitely.
Apart from that, the rest of the season, we already said the fifth major and minor already looks a bit rough. I
Mm.
want to specifically talk about what happens with TI-10 now, right? Because I'm going to get a little bit upset if it's cancelled. Uh, Obviously, everyone's going to be pretty upset if it's cancelled, right? It's TI. It's Christmas for us.
It's the 10th one. It's
Uh,
like it's rough, but it's the 10th one as well. I think
yeah,
that's gonna be a factor. The best
let's let
outlook I see is just pushing everything back and kicking off TI end of year. I
right,
think that's the safest time to say when any big event will get any government approval at all. Is
right,
probably end of year. Even then, it really depends on the developments. It's something completely out of our fields to talk about, but I'd
right,
say I realistically my expectations for at least the paperwork being signed is end of year. And I think Valve is very keen to keep on schedule with a TI per year. So they're probably going to put a lot of priority on TI getting done first, beyond the major contracts that they've signed with those 4 tournaments and those organizers. I think they will have to prioritize TI for this year. And then whether or not we'll see the DPC changes by next year is going to be a very different question because again, you have 4 contracts with 4 organizers who say they have to have those tournaments, 2 majors, 2 minors, and there was 1 major, 1 minor still up in the air whether or not they're going to go through. But again, at this rate, it's a safe bet to say it's probably going to be postponed, at the very least.
right.
So
Well,
I think
let's
TI-10 should go through this year, but at the end, I think whenever the minimum safe time is for government to sign off.
let's imagine, right? Because there's no news yet, right? Nobody said anything. We don't know what's going to happen. But let's imagine it's still going to happen in August, right?
Mm,
Hypothetically, it still goes on as per normal, but you've missed the fourth major and minor, and it's very, very likely you're going to miss the fifth major and minor. How do you decide what teams go to TI? Uh, that's a question that's been on my mind for quite probably about a week now. Is how do you decide? Like, who's gonna? You haven't had the last 2 majors and minors, which who knows what would have happened, right? You don't know who would have gotten into the top 8 or top whatever it is now. How would you decide? Like the way I see it, John. Let me just say first. This isn't my idea. I think it was Corrupt Drop Bear's idea. I'm
mhm.
pretty sure I saw this on Twitter, but somebody said it apart from me. They said have a wildcard tournament and just throw all these teams in there and just I don't know have some. Obviously, you have a point system where you distribute enough points so that it's significant enough, and just have them go to war. You know what I mean? Just have it like a mini TI, right? Like a DAC. Just have a huge tournament go on. You're basically going to guarantee some spots to TI based on these circumstances. Obviously, it's going to get a lot of viewership, and it's almost like a preseason to TI if you want
Mm.
to think about it that way. What do you think?
I think it's a bit iffy. I think the biggest part that puts that into question is the fact that you do already have running DPC points. So what about these teams in top 8, top 10? They're going to want the results to matter from the last 2 majors and 1 minor and three
Right,
minors. They want that to count, especially a team like TNC, of course. So, a lot of these teams will want the legitimacy of those points respected. I think what you can do is you look at the point distribution that was supposed to go to something like ESL, LA, and look at the participants. Maybe just split that evenly across all of those that qualified in, and then just work out the rest of the slots through some sort of relegation or qualifier basis. It's hard to say because again, you want those DPC points earlier in the season to matter. And ESL LA was about to happen. Like you
right,
had the teams confirmed. I think the best thing you can do is redistribute ESL LA points evenly, or well, no, not really evenly. Just cancel all of that off, but you have to look at the remaining points from the last 2 majors, 3 minors, work that out somehow, and figure out how you're gonna make up for basically missing 5 tournaments because we did miss LA. So you're gonna have to
Mm.
make up for missing 5 tournaments. And you could look at the wild card system is gonna be fun, but I think again you have to figure out at what point do you cut off for points on the DPC because it's hard to say that it's representative of teams when you miss out on all these tournaments. But you still have to make them count because they happen. You can't wash that away.
Well, as you can see, John, Christian's in the chat, and Christian's saying just let TNC win TI. Uh, since he's brought it up, John, I wasn't going to bring this up. TNC was playing the other day in the We Save
Mm.
tournament. They had Anna subbed in instead of
Mm-hmm.
Gabby because Gabby was having those internet issues. Shout out to
Uh-huh.
PLDT, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, and to my surprise, John, I tweeted out, I said, TNC's now got 2 Australians on the team. There's no way they lose. Impossible, right? They've got 2 of the best players. I mean, they've got the position 1 god in Anna and KP. We saw him doing some burnouts the other day in a game, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Fantastic player. Somehow
Yeah,
they still
absolutely.
lost, John. Somehow I don't know how to defend your team your country anymore.
No. It's you're not pinning this on us, Mike. You know what happens when Australians play on C? They abandon games, Mike. They abandon games when they play on C. So I wasn't too surprised. The connection between Australia and Southeast Asia is not particularly good at the best of times. And that
Right.
is a case where latency is a big issue. So I don't think it's fair to say that they lost purely off latency. For sure, of course, the other team must have performed admirably.
It was a
And
droid.
TNC, oh, you know what? Yeah, I would give it to a droid. Like that's a
Mm,
team that a lot of people will count down, but they always step up to the plate to beat other Filipino teams.
they do.
It's just it's the Filipino mindset. You got to beat your own people. You got to beat them down. You got to be able to go to the net shop with these guys and trash talk their mom. Otherwise, you're not playing it right. So I think the droid lives up to that spirit quite well.
Props to them. Of course, it is a charity tournament, John. I'm sure TNC are just kind of chilling out. It's for fun, right? Like nobody's really trying their hardest to smash out these wins. But yeah. Uh, good old
Dropped out, huh,
poor
Christian?
TNC. I mean, Christian's he's a huge TNC fan, John.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
He lives by TNC, but they just can't please the man, right? It's just have a talk with them, John. Go talk. Give TNC a call. Ask them what's going on. If they need some help, mate, we'll send them the help. Right? We've got more Australians in the back. Right? If you just want 5 Australians in the team, we can make that happen. You let me know.
Oh yeah, who's the legend again? The guy who was playing with Anna in in Convictus. Who was that
Oh,
guy?
you're talking
Happy
about
Box.
no, hold on. That's our player. That's Box
Yeah, yeah.
Hill. We don't just give Box Hill
Box Hill,
away,
legend,
right?
the
He's
legend.
our
Yeah.
secret weapon. If OG don't win TI 10, we bring out Box Hill. We replace Anna, get rid of him. We bring his cousin in. It is Anna's cousin, by the way. We bring in Box Hill,
Okay.
good old Boxy, and well, I mean that's just a guaranteed win at that point. It's impossible to lose with that guy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Fire.
Regardless,
Absolute fire.
regardless though, apart from these jokes, TI 10, you don't think it's gonna happen. You think it's delayed,
I think it's delayed. I
right?
think there's no way the government's going to sign off. See,
Okay.
because just the perspective, if people in an arena at this point in the year, no one's going to sign up.
Right.
Unfortunately, whether or not it's called for by the time TI is around is a different question, but it's just not going to get. I don't think.
Okay. That's rather sad news. That is not confirmed news, just
Oh,
in
of course
case
not.
anyone's listening. But this is not confirmed. We are only hypothesizing
Really.
on this current situation. But it looks pretty dire. It looks pretty sad. Of course, was it Sweden or it was meant to be in Sweden, right? Is that where it was meant to be? I can't even remember. I always get these confused. I think it was Sweden.
I reckon, but it actually slipped the top of my head now.
I always get
Now
confused
you
with these
mention
European countries.
So yeah, you know what? I'll just look real quick, just because it's bothering me now. Yeah, it was supposed to be Sweden.
Oh,
I know.
B Cop brings up a good point as well, right? The TI 8 tickets were on sale around this time. last year, or TI9 rather.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and now they're not. So it kind of implies something, right? Like it kind of
yeah.
gives you that a bit of knowledge as to what's
Definitely,
going on. It
definitely. You know what? You know what? It just popped in my head now. With
mm.
TI-10 pushback, what's gonna happen to my cosmetics, Mike?
Oh
Where's my
no.
immortals?
Where is the
Where?
battle pass actually?
It's
Where
up
is it,
there with the
Valve?
Dota. It's there with Dota Plus. Don't worry, it's up there somewhere. It's a service you pay for, Mike.
Don't even talk about Dota Plus to me. So I've got 200,000 shards and I don't know what to do with them. There's nothing left. I've unlocked everything. Come on, Valve. Uh,
Uh,
if TI10 doesn't happen in August, at least bring out a huge battle pass. Like bring out the biggest battle pass you've ever done, right?
oh yeah,
'Cause I always find with the battle pass, there's never enough time, right?
oh yeah.
'Cause, like, some of us are a bit older. We have other responsibilities, and it's not feasible for us to get the most out of the battle pass in however many months they give us. I think bring it out early. I think give us like the rest of the year to finish it. Who the hell cares? You're not losing money anyway, right? If
Yeah,
you're
no,
Valve,
they're
you're still
making more
making a
money
killing. Yeah,
the longer
right?
it runs.
I think just bring out a huge battle pass. Let us have some fun. Drag players back into the scene. Because people do come back to the scene for that. You don't play very often, John. But when the
I
battle
play a
pass comes
lot when the
out,
pass is out. Oh
right,
yeah,
when the pass is out, you're back. That's your
oh
time
yeah,
to shine.
oh yeah. It is. It
Yeah,
definitely is. May to be damned. I will go back in. I will play my Nyx. I will play my not Undying. He's just real dead. I'll play my Underlord and get
right.
my levels. That's it. I go in. I go out. Quick done deal. It's like we're working with Mafia or something. In out, no talking, done. Money
Well,
on the table, straight up from Valve.
we're going to see what they do anyway, right? Like, I think they will. I think with COVID-19 going on, I think they say, all right, we've got a chance, make a lot of money, but at the same time, make everyone happy, right? Which is
Yeah.
probably more important. Just keep everyone happy, right? I think this is a good time, Valve. If anyone from Valve is ever listening to this episode of the Primal podcast, John, release the Battle Pass now, as in yesterday, because
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I've got all this money, John. I can't. There's no toilet paper to buy, so I've got all this money saved up now, and I need to spend it on something, right? So I need a battle pass, right? If I'm not going to be able to wipe my ass, right, at least give me the battle pass.
Yeah, for sure. At least you'll be able to show off your golden virtual ass online for that money, rather than cleaning your own filthy ass in real life. That is a trade-off that I think would work out quite well for a lot of people. But I would like that pass out. I think it would bring me back. You know me. I'm a very wishy-washy guy. The meta has not favored any of my heroes in a long time. Well,
Hmm.
except Underlord. Like he's been good in the last patch and perhaps this patch as well. It's Underlord. There's only so many games I can take of that hero. I win, but I feel like I'm dead inside when I play him. It's like, okay, I press Q, I farm lane, I save my idiot support, I save my idiot cores because they're too tanky to die.
Yeah.
It's not very compelling gameplay when you play Underlord. I'll have to be frank with you.
No,
Like,
it's a snooze fest.
it
It's
is like the most exciting hero in my repertoire would be like Undying. And that's a hero that, I had a conversation with a bunch of lads about Undying. They were like, "Oh yeah, 36 to 46 damage in a tombstone. It's getting over buffed, but it's not in any way that makes Undying it fixes Undying's issues, which is 15 minutes you're not a hero. It's like
yeah.
15 minutes and you're just gone. Tombstone be damned. Like
But
you
who
are just not a factor."
cares? Who cares about Undying, John? Earth Spirit's back, right? We got Earth Spirit finally. I mean, my God, it took it took the God of Earth Spirit to retire, and it's finally happening. We've got him back, John. Shout out to Jay Gushy, by the way. He did ask me to make an Earth Spirit guide because I was on an 11 win streak the other day. Just completely smoking these kids. I mean, it's not even fair, right? I'm destroying these guys. And he said, Mike, bring out a guide, right? It's time you revealed the secrets of the Earth Spirit. MLP's ES guide is going to be coming soon. I only bring this up with you, John, because you're going to be the one making the video. Because God knows
Of course,
I'm
of course.
terrible at video editing. In fact, my video editing skills are non-existent. So I shall be making the plays, and hopefully you will agree to edit a video, and we can make a little bit of a terrible pub stomp guide for Earth Spirit. Um, and there is MMR to be gained, ladies and gentlemen. I would say free MMR, in fact, because a lot of those games have felt free to me, John. So
Mm. I
we'll
mean, I
find.
don't know. Like, I think Earth Spirit's in a better spot. I think some of the reason for that is Orb of Venom is just stupid now in melee. 15% slow. Like, you cannot miss out on the kill now when you roll in. That's a guaranteed kill for the first 5 to 10 minutes.
Right.
But I think overall, I have to say, like, good Earth Spirit players are going to be very happy, and anyone that
Ooh,
spams it out is going to be extremely happy. I think
amazing.
overall, the hero. I think it's not going to reflect on the overall win rate in pubs. I think in pro games you're going to see it a bit more. I believe Crit did pick that hero for their EG match against Business Associates, so it did win out there,
Right.
and that does mean it's just slowly popping. And I think it's a good place for the hero to be. Traditionally, Earth Spirit's one of those heroes which has usually a bit of an abysmal pub presence, but a much stronger pro. So I think in that sense, in pro scene, it could definitely come back in much stronger.
Hey, look, I don't want the pub win rates to go up. In fact, I
Mm.
want them to go down. I want them to plummet. Keep going down. Give me more buffs. That's what I need to say. I don't want it to go up. God knows, if that win percentage goes up by 0.1%, Ice Frog's going to look at that and go, no, 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 no. This is way too high for this hero. Something's wrong. I've got to nerf the hell out of it again. It's not fair on the pop. Meanwhile, Underlords had 60% win rate. Lycans had 60+% win rate. Even Wraith King right now, John, by the way, one of your favorites, is doing very, very well right now, just so you're aware.
Oh.
So maybe you do want to return, but don't touch my Earth Spirit, please. It's been a few days. I've been having fun again. Don't touch him. Leave him alone. Apart from that,
Uh,
John, it is that time. You've want to talk about Half-Life Alyx.
oh yeah.
You were
Oh yeah.
streaming it yesterday. I
Oh
can tell
yeah.
by the smile on your face you had a good time.
Oh yeah.
Tell me
Oh my
about it.
god.
Is the game good?
That first experience when you load in, you see the new Valve logo and that guy turning his head and you're like, it's really here. You
Mm,
know, Half-Life is really here. And it was great. Like visually outstanding game. I'm playing on an Oculus Quest. So there is a bit of loss because I'm going through a USB cable instead of like a display port or anything. But even with that bit of lossiness, because it has to be compressed by the graphics card, it's not raw out. It's like NVENC. It's like when you stream. Basically, I'm getting a direct video stream like you would get in Twitch onto my headset. It looked outstanding. I think the details were kept quite well. I had no FPS drops, so I was pretty sure I was going steady at 72 at whatever resolution the Quest runs at. It was outstanding. I think the gameplay is fantastic. I think the interactivity with the world was great. Like there's a section at the start. You go from the balcony, you go in, and you have this call with Eli Vance and the scientist guy. And there's a bunch of like markers on the desk, and there's a glass window. You see some writings on the glass window. And you're like, I can pick up the marker, okay? Can I write? And you write, and it's there. It reacts perfectly. Like everything is kind of reactable, and it's even more outstanding than say like the last marquee game for VR was Bonework. That one
right.
advertised its physics systems, its body reaction, its body presence, and reactivity as the biggest selling point. I think Alex does that a lot better in a lot of ways. There are downsides to the game that I think Valve didn't quite plan for when Boneworks came out, which is why they avoided the Game Awards announcements. They've been very mum about a lot more in-depth previews than they planned. I think that's because Boneworks highlights very big the shortcomings of Alex. The shortcomings of Alex are its control schema. Its control scheme is not amazing. Um, of course, it's designed for the index controllers at hand, and the index controllers has one big difference. Let me just pull out my Quest just for a bit, just to show. Let me disable that camera for a bit.
Right.
But traditional Oculus controllers, right? So pull that up. All right, turn on that webcam again. So the Quest controllers and the Rift controllers, this is how it looks like. It's basically like a controller, your standard analog controller. You've got the joystick, you've got your two buttons in one hand, same thing on the other hand. And the index has an additional like trackpad or haptic feedback pad here. So you have two ways of going like with a virtual axis touchpad and a physical joypad.
Right.
So there's certain bindings that the index has that you have to compensate for on something like this. And one of the things is that these controllers have quick turn. Like so you control movement with the left one. On the right one, you control where you're facing. Beyond your head movement, you can manually control where you're facing without moving with the right hand.
Hold on a second, John. Sorry, I don't think your webcam's working on the stream right now. Let me just
Oh,
I think when you let me just quickly. Yeah, no, it does not actually want to work. That's interesting. So when you turned it off, it's not turning back on OBS, but it is on the website
on the
we're on.
side, yeah.
Anyway,
Maybe
I'll
toggle
try and
scenes for a bit.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it's broken.
All right.
All right, so we know
That's
never to do
that's
that
strange.
again.
Yeah, I guess you learn. But all right, you're gonna have to deal with my voice. So you've got two sticks on your left and right hand, one stick each, and the index has that additional layer of control with that touchpad. The quick turn on Oculus products is terrible. Like there's an option to supposedly turn it off. I could not turn it off. There's an issue all over. I think it's down to default binding of these controllers that are not indexed.
Right,
So you're always going to have quick turn. And the issue with quick turn is, when you use a joystick, you expect it to be smooth, like smooth rotations, not jolty. Quick turn turns you at set angles, 15 degrees, 30 degrees, 90 degrees. Those settings would change, but I wanted it smooth. That was one thing that took away. The other thing was that movement in Alex is overall good, like actual moving around the map. The worst thing about Alex is that the jumping is like a teleport. So when you jump in Alex, it's not actually a jump, it's a teleport. And that takes a lot away. Like compare that to Boneworks. Boneworks, when you hold down the button to jump, your character crouches and you actually see yourself jump. For Alex, it's like it shows you where you're gonna land and just teleports you there. And I think that takes a lot away from the experience. So Alex is definitely up there as probably the best VR game right now. It's not quite perfect. I still think it's a great game. I think it's worth the wait. But I think the biggest thing is that its controls are not what you'd want. And I think that takes a lot of the effort Valve gave in to make this happen. Now, mind you, these are all fixable by a patch. The quick turn is fixable by a patch. The the uh the quick turn is fixable by a patch. They could patch in so that you can actually jump as the game progresses as well. Like they could make that happen. I still think it's the best VR game. I still think it's a really worthy successor of Half-Life. I think if you actually see the game, you'll be amazed. Like if you have the headset on, you see that world when you come into it, you see how much you can do in that world. You see how smooth the throwing actions are. Like just throwing
right.
objects. That's something a lot of VR games can't get right. Like they don't have that momentum when you throw. And Alex does that quite well. I think it's a great game. I think it's something everyone has to experience. I think it's a good it's a good leverager for VR. I think Valve has accomplished that. It's not the perfect game, and it has in comparison, like Half-Life has much less blemishes, like for what it was trying to do. Like Half-Life had a lot of glitches, but for what it was trying to do, I think Half-Life was much more polished in the sense that you weren't complaining about the fundamentals of the game, whereas here you can complain about the jumping. I think that's the key takeaway.
So let me ask you though, with Half-Life Alyx, it's only VR, right?
Yeah.
It's right. So would you be mad if Half-Life 3 ever comes out, right? If Valve finally get over the number 3 and they say, "All right, we're going to do it." Surely you would have to agree that there has to be if there's going to be a VR version, there has to be a standalone
No.
PC version.
No.
No?
No. No. It's not. With the way this is going, I do not see Valve going back
Really?
to traditional FPS. No, the experience they tied into Alex is just very holistic. I don't think that translates well to regular experience with the interactivity that this control scheme gives you. I think you cannot they can't go back in development. I think this is the way forward. I think if you look at the interviews as well on the future of the franchise before Alex launched, Valve was already saying, if Alex does great, we'll look into making more Half-Life games in that vein. And I think Alex did great. So I don't see them walking back in. I think there are arguments to be made against VR, but price is not really the big one. Like, you can buy a Samsung Odyssey, I think, for around $230 now. I think it's dropped in price considerably. A lot of Windows mixed reality headsets are in the 200 USD range. And that's a good enough experience for you to get into VR. It's not going to be high end like the Index. It's probably not going to be as smooth as the Oculus even, but I wouldn't say it's a bad experience at all. Based on the feedback I've heard on these headsets, I think it's competent, and I think this is just something we're gonna have to accept. Valve is not one to walk back on stuff they've built up. Like, they made Half-Life 2, then Half-Life 2 Episode 1 and Episode 2 in kind of the same vein of what they were doing with the FPS. And
Right.
I think Alex is that kicker point, like Half-Life 2 was. For any future development, they're gonna be looking very hard at VR, and I think that's perfectly fine. Um, we are going to be looking at the next generation of VR coming up very soon as well. Like, there were announcements made by HP. HP announced a new headset in collaboration with both Microsoft and Valve, and this is looking to be a much more competitively priced headset, especially with Valve sponsorship. This could mean actual competition for Oculus at the price point. So the VR space is just getting better and better. I think if you're worried about PC specs as well, you'd be surprised with what kind of PC can actually pump VR now. Something like a 960, probably, or a 1060 is probably enough to play these games at a very good frame rate.
All right.
So I don't think there's too many arguments against VR now besides the hesitancy to adopt. And I think Half-Life Alex is proving to me that these games, when developers actually develop for VR, they can be very worthwhile experiences.
Well, I guess you've kind of convinced me to almost try it. I don't know. I am intrigued. I am intrigued. I don't have any VR headset myself. Uh, Never have. And I am a bit more of a, I'm kind of on that side of things where I'm like, I don't really want to go to VR. I don't want to have to adapt. I want to just sit on my PC and play games like I always have. Uh, but I can see you're still trying to fix the webcam. I don't know why it's not fixing, John. It just won't change on OBS. But
Fine.
yeah, I don't know. Look, I might have to try it. You've almost convinced me. Um, I didn't watch your. I was unfortunately asleep when you were streaming
Oh yeah.
yesterday.
I mean, it launched super early morning.
Yeah, but I might
Um.
go have a look at the VOD and see what it
Oh
looked
yeah.
like from your perspective.
I mean,
Uh,
there's a you look when you play VR, you're always gonna look a bit dumb. So my camera looked really dumb. You know, it never looks as cool as it does in the lens, but
right.
I think it's a great experience. I would say my experience at launch was a bit unfortunate. I think the big thing was that when it launched, I had it preloaded. And what happened next was that, for Valve, when you preload it afterwards, it unpacks at launch itself. So I was unpacking this game, 40 gig download, unpacking to verify. And that took me 30 minutes on an SSD, on an SATA
It's a
SSD.
long
That was
time.
stupid. That was
Yeah.
stupidly long. And I read comments on the Steam forums about people who had it installed on an HDD, taking an hour and a half. So that was not a great launch experience. I think a lot of people were saying it would have been faster if you just uninstalled and downloaded. And I think for a lot of people with fast internet, that would have been faster. So that was a bit of a rough experience at launch. I don't think there have been too many bugs. I'd say you cannot experience Half-Life as it is without the VR. Like, Alex does it so well. Like, you know how in Half-Life 2, like, at some point the headcrab zombies are just kind of annoying? In
Right.
Alex, they're just always terrifying. Even barnacles, like moving through barnacles, are terrifying because they change the way they work. Like, their tentacles come down right as you run into them now. Like, sometimes, right before you run into them, that's when they drop down. They're not just always there.
Mm.
And the sound, the positional sound they've made into their design is insane. Like, I was playing for a bit. It was like 2:30 a.m. Right, so I was playing a bit. I was standing around and I hear a voice in my head. I was like, "What the hell?" I thought someone was here. It
Yeah.
was just the character in the game from a bit of a distance that is conceivably within my room.
Jesus.
It's a great game.
Right.
You have to experience it. I think this is the game that should convince a lot of people to get into VR.
Well, on that note, John, we are getting to the point where we're about to, shut off the podcast and finish off episode 1. But if I may,
Mm.
I guess I want to kind of go back to COVID-19.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about what's happening in Australia in particular. And people's reactions. And I don't mean to offend anyone, but people are being fucking stupid, right? To,
Oh
to
yeah.
put it to put it in the simplest way possible. It started off a couple weeks ago. Everyone started buying toilet paper for some
Oh yeah.
reason. For some reason, everyone decided the one thing that they needed if there was going to be a pandemic is toilet paper, right? And they bought out all the stock. You couldn't go to the shops and get toilet paper. And it was like, all right, whatever. Who cares, right? And
Mm.
now that it's becoming more of a pandemic, they've gone to, starting to stockpile things up, starting to panic buy, buying pasta, rice, and canned foods and all that crap. And it's getting a little bit ridiculous. I just want to ask, if those people were in front of me, what the fuck are you gonna do if it lasts months? Like, if we actually got locked down for months and the grocery store shut down, what are you gonna do after your food runs out? Right? Like, eventually you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Okay? So what does that tell you? It tells you that it's in the government's best interest not to make it so you're gonna starve to death, right? Because a
Yeah.
government without people is not a government. They're just a bunch of
Mhm.
people now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But these idiots, they're running to the shops. They're panic buying, like they're filling multiple trolleys up. They're fighting in the shops. A man got tasered by the cops the other day, right?
Jeez.
Because that's how aggressive they're getting. They're getting that aggressive in the shopping center. They're starting fights. They're getting tasered by the police. They're getting arrested. They're having to go to court. Things like this, and it's like, I understand it's a scary time, but they're not going to shut down the grocery stores. You know, they're not going to let their people starve, because if they let their people starve, then they're not a government. They lose
Mm.
power, and then they're nothing. Even if they were the most selfless people most selfish people in the world, it wouldn't suit their cause by letting their people starve, right? And you just watch these people. They're ravaging these shopping centers, going nuts, waiting in
Yeah.
line for 5-6 hours at a time, trying to get into these grocery stores, just so they can stockpile shit up. And the saddest thing in all this is the people that are most affected by COVID-19, being the elderly people that have the highest fatality rates. They're the ones that are being left with nothing, right?
Oh yeah.
These elderly people, they can't rush into the store and
No.
stockpile a trolley full of stuff fast enough and then get to the line and wait there for 5 hours and then somehow make it home. So all these pictures are showing up of these elderly people standing there looking at the shelves and just being confused and crying and being helpless and stuff. And it's like, what are you fucking morons doing? Like, what happened to your humanity? Like, where's your sense of humanity gone? You're going in there and you're buying all this shit as if we're all going to get locked up for eternity. And it's like, I'd like to politely remind anyone that panic buys, if the grocery stores get locked down and we run out of food, I can guarantee you're going to die eventually, right? If I die a week faster than you, it doesn't mean you're not going to die. You're going to die eventually, right? So
Mm.
just calm the hell down. You're not going to die. It's got a lower fatality rate than the flu and multiple other things for that matter. It's still a serious pandemic. I'm not taking that away, right? We should be concerned and deal with it properly. But for the love of God, don't lose your humanity over it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You
The
know?
biggest thing with this entire thing is like I feel like it's been more damaging how people have reacted to it
It
than the
has.
actual facts. Like if we just dealt with this calmly, we wouldn't have this
No.
insanity on hand now. But we can't have calmness, and we can't have that rationality.
And then you've got these people as well. They've purposely gone and stockpiled products prior to this happening, so they could sell it on like essentially a
Oh no.
black market of toilet paper and fucking and disinfectant and stuff. I mean, it was on the news the other day. They had a guy with like 40 grand worth of toilet paper,
Jesus.
and just selling it online, you know. And it's just the saddest thing I've ever seen. It's like how desperate of a person must you be? Like how much of a loser do you have to be to think to yourself, I'm not creative enough to make a lucrative business by being a good person. So I'm going to go stockpile toilet paper and sell it to people at an exponentially larger rate during a pandemic because they're going to need it. I mean, it's just insanity, right?
It really is.
Like
It really is.
you're not smart for doing it. It's
No.
pathetic.
No, you're a
It really is
jackass.
pathetic. And this dickhead on the news that came on, he felt sorry for himself. He thought he was a victim in all this because nobody was buying his toilet paper, right? There was this guy who was kind of like crying about it because he's like, man, I've got all this stock that nobody's buying because they're against me buying it during a pandemic. And it's like, I'm sorry, are we meant to feel sorry for you now? You know, are we meant to pity you that you've bought too much and you're trying to do something terrible during a pandemic? Um, in the end, I believe this guy has agreed that he's going to end up donating to a charity of some sort to to spread it towards the elderly people. You know, get the toilet paper and disinfectant and stuff out to them. So it ends up being a good thing anyway. But my point is even if it somehow comes to the worst, which it won't, right? We're gonna solve this COVID-19 garbage together
Mm.
as humans, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
if we didn't, we're all gonna die anyway. So
Oh
calm the
yeah.
hell down, right? There's no need to
Ab-
panic. Where it's not like you're gonna die and everyone else is gonna survive, right? We're all gonna be all right. Can't like, I mean,
oh
just take care of the elderly people for the love of God, you know. Whoa, there goes my dog apparently barking at something.
yeah.
And I suppose that's a good way to end off the first episode, John. I apologize. I don't mean to finish it on on that kind of note, right? It's a
Mhm.
rather negative note. But I think most people listening would agree
Oh
that
yeah.
the way people have been dealing with this has to be one of the most pathetic things like they've ever seen, right? It
Mm.
really makes you lose faith in humanity.
Definitely does.
This is meant to be a Dota podcast, by the way. So just so you're aware, we won't be going off on this COVID-19 tangent every time. We are. I believe, John, we are going to plan to do this once a week, right?
Yeah. Once or
Right,
twice, yeah, depending on the volume of news. I think once is more
right,
realistic.
right. One is really like one should be the regular, and if it's a
Mm.
crazy week, if there's
Oh
a
yeah.
a crazy amount of like team changes or news in general in the Dota scene, obviously we'll be back on for like I guess some live coverage of what's going on.
Mm.
Uh, Apart from that, it's been an absolute pleasure, John, and it's. I'm
Same.
glad we finally got it out. We are
Oh
gonna
yeah.
try and we are gonna upload onto YouTube, so this VOD will be
Mhm.
on YouTube. I believe we're gonna try on iTunes and Spotify as well, right? Like we're gonna try and
Yeah.
get it on those platforms as well. And like I said, we are gonna try and do one a week around the same time and day.
Mm.
We agreed on that, right? Same
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
time and day.
Yeah.
Obviously, those could change, but we'll probably update you on Twitter or wherever else you're following us to tell you, hey guys, we switched to this day for whatever reason. Um, if you did enjoy, by the way, if you're listening somewhere and you don't know who we are, consider following us on Twitter and Facebook at MLP Dota, at JohnXFire. And of course, John has a Facebook, johnxfire.gaming. Uh, I will be making one very shortly, and it will also be dash MLP Dota. So it's same thing for me. In fact, it's already there. I just haven't done anything with it. So you can go follow it if you like, but it's basically a blank page anyway. So there's probably no point. John, any final words before we shut this off?
Now, everyone, I hope everyone's just having a very protected time. To stay safe. It's a bit rough as it is. Maintain your social distancing. Follow your government's words. I'm not the kind of guy to say, follow the government. I'm a bit of a crazy dude, but in this case, just stick to the guidelines, stick to whatever your local government's telling you, stay safe. And in the downtime, if you can't do anything else, at the very least, try to have some fun.
Yeah, that's it. Just relax. Just relax. It's gonna be all right. Just take care of each other. That's
Oh,
it. It's how we survive through all of the bullshit we've been through throughout history. Just take care of each other. Regardless, it is MLP Dota and John X Fire. We'll see you guys next week for another episode of the Primal Raw podcast. See you then.